Hello everyone and welcome back to Prestige Reef. Today is the day. 2 weeks ago I set a target that in 2 weeks time I will have coral in the mega build. Well, is there any coral in there? Not yet. I have worked very hard the last 2 weeks to make sure this happens, and by the end of the day, even if it's just a token piece of a single piece of coral, I will have coral in there. At the moment there isn't any, but so far we are on target. I just need to cut some, we'll cut the frag plugs off and then dip it and then put it in. Well, they'll re-glue it down and then put it in. What we did last week, we got quite a lot done last week, which is why you didn't get a video. We hung most of the lights. There's 4 sets of lights which are here, which haven't been hung. The reason they haven't been hung is because you need a specific type of screw, and the hanging kit that we have that goes into the ceiling, but it doesn't go into underneath the tanks. The screws are too long. Before we move on, I just want to say 2 massive thank yous. The first one is to Tim, because Tim came and helped hang the lights. The second one is to you guys. In last week's video, I explained that YouTube has an algorithm which it promotes videos with lots of engagement. My last video had 700 likes. YouTube promoted it. When it comes to engagement, YouTube is like, feed me. I'll never do that again. Feed me. You are making a difference. So if you like the video, then consider clicking the like button. If you like the channel, then consider clicking the subscribe button, and yeah, we'll go from there. So let me show you what I was doing. All right, so in order to mount the XR15s, what I have done, I've actually got shelving brackets because they are made of aluminium and they're strong, and then I've got hanging kits for LEDs. Originally, these cables, these ones here, were about 1 foot long each. This is only a very small gap. It was for quite big LED lights. So systematically, it was very fiddly work. We had to cut the cables to shorten them, and then we had to stick these clamps on. And these screws are tiny. They are literally tiny. And anyone that knows me knows that I have basically no DIY skills. But the ones that are hanging have been hanging since last week. So it shows that I must have done some job correctly. And the other thing is to show you, look. I almost have my living room back. This space has been filled with fish stuff and boxes for ages. So let me take you inside and show you what we did last week. The first thing you notice, even from the outside, is that the room has this ominous blue glare to it now. And if I take you inside, you'll understand why. So when you first walk in, it's pretty obvious as to why there's this blue hue on the door outside. I am going to get a blackout blind just so that my neighbours don't have a constant, blinding blue beam of light shooting into their living room. I'm actually going to put a filter on so you can see what I can see. Right, so this is what we did last week. We have got the first lights up on the grout system, which are obviously on. All the lights and power pack, everything goes into the ceiling so that it's all hidden. We have the lights on Coral Tray 1, lights on Coral Tray 2. These are the ones that all work, and then we also have lights on the grout tank 2, as well as Coral Tray 3, 4, oh no, not 4, we haven't got them on 4, because we ran out, we need some specialist screws, we ran out of the smaller screws, we've got it on the Coral Tray 5, and then again not on 6. Let me show you what else has changed in here. If we go back to the very beginning, these tanks are now salted. All 3 of these tanks are salted. I actually learned something from these systems while adding salt to them, and that is that they're actually bigger than I thought they were. I thought that these systems were 1,500 litres combined, this first system. However, I've had to add enough salt for 1,800 litres. So I thought that this was the smaller of the 2 systems. Well, it is the smaller of the 2 systems, which means that one is probably, the one over there, is going to be even bigger than that, which means the system is actually probably more than 4,000 litres. All of the MP40s, Vectras, and everything is plumbed in now. So each of the tanks has the MP40 set up. I have put a temporary temporary egg crate in. I will eventually have black acrylic with the locking mechanisms in there, so that the fish can't take the frags out. The Profilux is tuned in, not the dosing pumps yet, but the Profilux itself is tuned in. James will not like my wire management because, as you can see, I've just thrown them down the back. The probes are here. And these have been actually really useful in setting the system up, because what I did yesterday, I had the system plugged into the Profilux plugged into my computer. I had initially added 2 bags of salt, which was enough for 1,200 litres. And then after that, because I didn't want to put too much salt in, I just kept adding a little bit of salt, and then the Profilux would tell me the salinity, and that was so. And then if it wasn't enough, then I would just add some more. So. It was incredibly useful setting this up, I can assure you. The salinity of these tanks is 1.026. These systems will actually specifically be for soft corals originally. At first there will be a mixture of both soft and SPS corals until that system over there is up and running. But eventually this will be specifically a soft coral system. The salt I end up going with is Tropic Marine Pros. The main reason for this is because of how well it performed on BRS TV. Where they did tests on a whole range of different salts, and one of the biggest things that came out to me was that some of the salts leave a residue in the bucket. Well, I am mixing the salt in. This is going to be how I do a water change. So I'm going to drain. Obviously, the water drains down a valve down here, and then it fills up with a valve here, somewhere down there, valve there, and then once this is full of fresh RO water, I'm just going to add salt to it. So not having lots of residue was one of the most important things to me, because otherwise this tank is going to get just full of that crud you get at the bottom of barrels. If I take you over here, as you can see, I've been preparing for today. So obviously I've got a range of coral dips, iodine for fragging. These came from Aaron's Aquarium. So those of you who don't know, Aaron's Aquarium he owns a shop now. And I want to be able to support another fellow YouTuber, because it's hard work being a YouTuber. So although I might be biased with that comment, so I thought I'd buy all the supplements for dosing from him. The only thing I will say is that I did make a specific request saying I was his #1 fan and asking him to sign them, but he didn't do it for me, because when YouTubers get to a certain size, they feel like they're too important to sign bottles for their #1 fan. I'm just joking, because I am a huge fan of Michael, and hopefully he's a fan of me. So we go on well together. So I've got some carbon. The reason I got carbon is for one of the talks, which I will show you in a minute, is controlled again by the Profilux. So I can turn this on and off with my phone, and then all these here, these are all the dosing solutions. So, how most of you have, 2 litre barrels or 3 litre barrels for your dosing solutions. So these are mine. So that is the KH barrel, and then I've got calcium and magnesium. So in order to fill the KH barrel, I need a huge number of sodium bicarbonate. That's what these are for. These will go into those barrels, and I will use the entirety of these. So there'll be no spare. When I fill those barrels up, I have to pour the entire bottle in to go with it. And then the final thing, I've got some bacteria, because as you know, the coral will be going in, and I've got some coral food. And this coral food has very low. It's difficult to overdose, and obviously these systems haven't been cycled. So having a system which is not cycled and putting coral in it, I've been told that it will, in theory, the theory makes sense where you don't have to necessarily cycle for specifically just coral. Having said that, when you're like me and you've been doing this 13 years and everyone tells you, and you've always thought you absolutely have to cycle everything before you put in and wait for coralline algae for SPS corals, so it feels wrong, even though, as I said, in theory, it should be fine. So that's it sort of for in here now. Because I know what you want to see. You want to see coral in that tank. Now, there isn't going to be a vast amount of coral. I am, as I said, I'm a little bit nervous, but I feel like I've taken the right precautions, and I have a lot of monitoring. So, and the other thing is, all the coral that will be going in these systems I will have duplicates of. So, if in the unfortunate event that it does die, it's not like I won't have lost an entire colony and not still have those pieces. But yeah, that's it. it's quite, although it's like it might sound reasonably loud for recording, I don't know. It's actually surprisingly quiet in here. It's surprisingly quiet in here, considering how much water is moving around the systems. It is much quieter than an average fish shop, which is ideal, and that's actually what I wanted, because obviously when you film in here, sound is important. So anyway, so I'm going to stop talking because I need to get coral in these systems. This will be the only coral which I won't be quarantining, and the reason I won't be quarantining it is because it's already been in my Red Sea tank for how long? It's been there probably a good 3 months. So I feel that that in itself is a form of quarantine. I don't have any issues in the Red Sea tank. And the corals that came from the quarantine tank originally came from my 1,000 litre tank. So it's almost been double quarantined. But despite that, I will still be using dips. This is one I haven't actually used before. So I can't comment on how good it is. I have James told me to buy Dettol. I have never used Dettol before to dip corals, but I know in America they use I think it's Bayer, which is pretty common. So just because it looks like it would be lethal to them doesn't necessarily mean it is. I'm not going to try that without him. That's for sure. And I've got a few other dips that I will go through my dipping method with you, because everything that goes into my other systems gets dipped twice. It gets dipped, then it gets put into clean water, not clean water but tank water, and then it gets dipped again in a different solution, because none of these solutions are absolutely perfect, and I've had pretty good luck with doing it like that. So anyway, as I said, I need to go get some coral, so I will see you in a minute. There are a couple of things I forgot to show you a minute ago, so I've decided to come back in. This whole build is about precision. So what I will be doing is matching all of my other tanks to exactly the same parameters as these systems, so that the corals are used to the levels of calcium, alkalinity and magnesium. As the other thing that I'm doing is this. For those of you who don't know, this is a par meter. And our eyes are very, very bad at telling how strong light is. As you can see, as I move it around the tank, the par drops. Now the plan is to measure the par of where the corals are coming from and then match that par to the same par in this tank, because then it reduces the stress, because you know that those corals have been growing under that light already. It's a pretty nifty device. This is from Apogee, and I believe is one of the best ones. This is the one that a lot of people use to basically tune in their LED lights. So and there's one other cool thing I want to show you. Right, so I don't know how easy this is going to be to show, but as you can see, there's a little bit of carbon in there. This torque is connected to the power bar, and then if I come down here, you might not be able to see it properly, but if I click NIOS right, this is the GHL app. It's exactly the same as on my phone, but I can't show it on my phone because obviously I'm filming on my phone. And then if I turn it on, and then save, and then go up here, and then in theory, this should work. There you go. Now the reason I've got carbon in here is just in case. So you turn the torque at the top to either speed up the flow or slow it down. So that's basically off. You don't want carbon tumbling too much because you can pull it apart. And the reason I've got carbon in here is because just in case anything from, obviously there's been a lot of building materials and stuff like that drilling into the roof and everything. So just in case, that's what I've done. But yeah, I just thought it was a pretty neat feature to have these controlled I can basically control them from my phone. You can pretty much, with the GHL app, control basically anything that has an on-off function. Anyway, I need to go get the coral for you. Right, so this is all the SPS pieces which I'm going to start with. I've got 4 different colours of digi, red, purple, sort of like a silvery colour, and green. And then I've got 2 pieces of elkhorn, 1 piece of forest fire, and then this is a Seriatopora. And then I've got, for LPS, I'm just putting 1 frog spawn in, which is like a pale type. And then I'm also going to be putting in 1 probably mushroom and 1 cabbage coral. So let me get these stuck on plugs and dipped, and then I'll be able to show you them in the tank. Firstly though, let me show you some of one of the neat features that James put in action. So obviously they're going in that tank over there. If I turn this valve, that water there is from that system. So I mean, you can't get much easier than that Right, I'm done. I will be completely honest with you, that would be one of my least enjoyable frag sessions that I've ever had. Fragging for me is usually quite, therapeutic and enjoyable and relaxing, whereas because I am filming this literally probably about an hour or a couple of hours before you see it, I feel very rushed, or I felt very rushed. So they wouldn't be the prettiest frags I've ever done, but I'm a man of my word. I kept my promise. There are corals in the coral tray. It is finally a coral tray. So let me show you. Right, so the corals have been in for about half an hour now. I just went to go finish editing the video and I've come back and this is how they look. Some of them have a reasonable amount of slime on them still, which is to be expected, considering it's literally been half an hour. However, surprisingly, the frog spawn looks like it's been living in here for years. In fact, I'm almost certain the frog spawn looks better in this tank than it did in the other tank. It'll be very interesting to see how these do long term. Providing these survive, I'll start moving over a much larger group of them. Right, that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. I'm sorry it's a little bit more rushed than usual, but as I said, I wanted to get the corals in for you. If you did enjoy it, why not click that like and subscribe button. Have a good week, and I'll see you next time.